Hello, I'm Tim McDonald, and I am the founder of Share My Liver. And the best advice I ever got was from my mom. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
So how young or old were you, Tim, when your mom said that? Were you a precocious kid like me where your mom probably tried to smack that in your head every day, or when did you hear that?
I think I was probably like in my, uh, early double digit years, right before that, right around that time frame. It was, but I don't know why I remember it, but probably because she said it so often.
That's awesome. So how have you used that, Tim? That's great advice though, right? One ear or two ears, one mouth. How have you used that?
Well, I use it a lot because I always say, like, especially online, we hear this term lurkers in communities. And I always embrace the lurkers because I am one in a lot of communities. But that doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. It just means that I'm taking the time to actually listen to people more than I concern myself about them hearing me.
So that's interesting. So let's break that down because I think that will help kind of set some stage here. So first, lurkers are still listening. I think that's a great point. So talk to me, like define lurker for those who are not as online experienced as you and me, buddy.
Well, I always easily define it as somebody that you can't easily identify being part of your community or following. So it's like they don't hit the like button, they don't comment on your post, they don't share post and tag you, but you have no way of knowing if they actually saw what you posted and what they're doing with it.
Okay, so that makes sense, right? So not only are they lurkers, in many cases they might be very passive, but they're still participating, right, by listening. And I think that's important, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's why I just had a conversation last week about we were debating with different community managers about whether we should leave lurkers in a community, leave them alone, whether we should try and re-engage them, or we should just kick them out.
That's
And
interesting. So what did you decide?
well, I was on the side of try and engage them, but engage them without being pushy and without doing it obnoxiously. It's all about like letting them have their time and space, but creating opportunities where you can try and get them more engaged.
Hmm. Okay, I like that. So that certainly is possible, right? So now Facebook offers the at everyone tag. Is that obnoxious? I mean, it's only once a week, right? Is that obnoxious or is that okay?
Oh God, when I first saw that feature come out on Facebook, it annoyed the crap out of me because everybody was using it too obsessively. Um, I think a lot of groups have gotten better on it, but some groups have lost me because they were using it every day or multiple times a day. Now I only see it in the groups that I am still participating in, used maybe once a week, which
Yeah.
is
Well,
in my mind that's
okay,
fine. It's
let's
like if it's important, they want everybody to see it, and I get that. But if it's like just saying it because your every post that you put up, you want somebody to see, that is obnoxious.
good. No, that and I think that is a good point, right? We're not using it solely to promote here. We're hopefully trying to advance the group's agenda, right? The group's mission, right?
Exactly. If it's something that you think pertains to everybody in the group that would get value out of it or see something that they should be aware of, that is key to it. So that's why I don't mind it in the groups that I still belong to because they're using it very intentionally instead of just because it's a feature there that's available.
Yeah, well, and you're intentional too, and I think this is an important thing to remind folks of, right? Like you've opted in. If you don't want in and you don't want to just listen and you don't want to participate, that's okay. Like it's okay to remove yourself from a group. Don't just I would argue, like don't complain about the at everyone tag. Don't complain about that. Just leave. Like it's not an airport, right? You don't have to announce your departure. Just get out of the group and that's okay, right?
That's exactly what I did. I didn't call anybody out. I didn't, complain about anything. I just took my place and left.
Yeah, there we go, right? And I think that's helpful, right? I mean, on emails, we have an unsubscribe. On
Mhm.
Facebook, we can leave a group. We can do that on LinkedIn. I haven't seen a way to, I guess, mass tag people on Twitter yet, but I imagine that'll come. Instagram, probably the same. I mean, I guess I've got close friends on Instagram. Is that what we're is that how we do that, Tim? Because you're way more of an expert at this than me.
I don't know if you can do it on LinkedIn. Like, I don't think any other platform other than Facebook really has it now, and a couple community platforms have it, but not like, the major social networks. I don't think have the at everyone type of thing, or at here. I've seen in
Mhm.
some community platforms, but it's just about like, just hopefully they don't, because I think too many people will not see the intention on it and just use it because it's there. And that's what most platforms do, is they try and get us to use the tools and the features that they put out. And they're not supposed to be for everybody. They're only supposed to be for certain people in certain situations.
Right. Absolutely. Good reminder there. So Tim, your background is in community management. And that's how you and I became friends, gosh, 15 years ago, right? In Chicago. When you're there, you moved to New York. Now you're in Tampa. And of course, as soon as you moved there, I had to leave. So just like I did Wisconsin, right? So funny enough, right? So and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but kind of sad. Like, dude, like we've been so close and yet so far. I am grateful for the times that we get. We have to choose to be intentional as well, right? To get together in person. But let's talk about community management, because I think in many cases it gets a bad rap as somebody who spams crap out there and just posts social media. So what is community management really, Tim?
Well, first, I think we need to define what community is before we can talk about community management. So, the easiest way for me to describe it to most people is it's not interchangeable with audience. Most platforms, you have an audience. You are broadcasting out, and anybody almost in most platforms can see it, or people who have selected or you've selected to see it can see it. Everybody. But it's not there to create anything more than you sharing what you want. And a community is, and I always say, so that's like one distinction. But the other distinction I say is like, imagine like a sports team, right? Or a music performer. They have concerts, they have games, right? Or matches. You They have fans slash audience that comes and watches them when they're in that stadium. Now, your community members might be part of your audience too and go to those events. But the thing that they're doing that most people that are going to those stadiums are not doing is they connect and engage with each other in between the events going on. And they talk with each other and they promote the artist or the team as when nothing's happening. And that is your community. And you usually, what I say is, community needs to have an exclusive space. So like, let's just say Facebook, right? I know you can select who your friends are, but let's say you have a page, right? Almost anybody can like, and you can kick people out, but it's open to anybody. There's no like really
No
opt-in thing
games.
other than you saying like, right? And that's about it. Community has some form of exclusivity. Now, that doesn't have to mean you need to give a drop of blood or hand over your firstborn child or anything like that. But what it does mean is that you need to kind of have a gate, that people know that they are doing something to let you open the gates for them to come in. And they can leave whenever they want, but they are there because they choose to be there, not because they're just there and you're there. So that is like a community to me. And I think the easiest way to kind of define this in most context is that people come together over a shared purpose and create a shared impact. So a lot of times we do not see this anywhere else except in communities. Most companies do this, right? You bring your employees together. Not everybody's there over a shared purpose, other than maybe getting a paycheck. But your goal is to create a shared output, right? And so this is the difference between like community and employers, or community and audiences, is we're all coming together over a shared purpose, but creating a shared impact as well. And we all feel like we are part of creating that impact together, not just that you did it for me or somebody else did it and I was just watching on the sideline.
Wow. So that's interesting, right? So I like your distinction of audience is not community. And then just because you bought a ticket doesn't mean that you're community. It doesn't mean that you're not, to be clear, right? So you go from audience, I was going to say little a, to community with a little c, then it grows up into like capital C community,
Yeah.
right? And that's where your shared purpose and shared impact goes in. Am I tracking with you, buddy?
You're pretty much there. I'm kind of chuckling when you said the capital C, because I just posted on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago that my phone, I must be in community for too long, because my phone now capitalizes the C in community automatically for me.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny, man. And that's so true though, because I would say when I think of Tim McDonald, the word I think of is community all the time, right? Like I know you have a tattoo on your arm, right? And we'll talk about that in a minute here. But I would say, if you're going to get a tattoo on your chest, it would be community with a big capital C,
Or
right?
maybe I just have like the Superman logo with the C instead
With
of
a
an S.
C? All right. Well, don't tell your wife that I told you to get that, but go for it. I support you. All right. So funny, man. So because we've been friends a long time, and I've seen, I've watched you in community. I've been part of some of the communities and watched from afar other ones. I've been a little C community member, right? Because if you invite me, I'm probably, yeah. Well, I'm gonna at least show up, right? I'm probably gonna show up. And with that, but I've watched the shift, Tim, from the time you got to Tampa, and I know that you've transformed, man. Like you've become quite different than the Tim that I knew 15 years ago. Like, not that you weren't about community then, but I think you were like capital B community, like business community. And now you're really the capital C, like purpose and impact. So what shifted that for you, man? What shifted for you to change that?
That's a great question. I really think back then it was all about, because it was also new, that I was just absorbing what I was taking in from others. As I've grown and become more experienced, I've started to look within instead of externally. And when I start looking within, I start realizing what matters to me, what is healthy for me as an individual. And what I found was that I am really passionate, not about making money. Not that money's a bad thing. I'm not against money, don't get me wrong. But that impact is greater. And I wish was a currency that we could spend, because I would just do that all the time.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be great? And I wish that were true too. So that really is the shift then, kind of from me to we, right? We focus on, okay, I was kind of, consuming, and now you're connecting. And I think that's a big shift for you there. Connecting with impact as opposed to, connecting with income, right?
Yeah, well, to sum it up, yes. And I know back in those days, I really didn't. I might have looked like I had money. I had nothing. I remember one trip down, because I lived in the suburbs of Chicago. One trip down to the city, I had enough money to go one way on the train. And, luck just would have it. The conductor didn't ask for my ticket on the way down, so I didn't have to ask anybody for money to get home. That's how little money I had back then. But now I'm not saying I'm rolling in dough, but I am definitely in a lot better position than I was back then, which maybe allows me to really have that focus. But back then I wasn't focused just on making money so I could have it. It was basically making money as a necessity to be able to survive and do the things that I wanted to do. Where now it's like, it's really about like, I can be intentional about who I work with, what causes I'm involved with, because they need to align with who I am as a person and what impacts me personally. And this is what I found. It's like, just, I was always latching on to other people's causes and supporting them. But you know what? It's kind of like, and it's just, when we talked about share my liver, and I'm sure we're going to go into this, but, it was just like when I was diagnosed with cancer, right? Like before that, yes, I did. Like, I know when I was in Chicago, I did a walk, for, cancer or something like that, around the park, and put a team together and did all that. But it didn't have any meaning to me. It was just doing something good, that I knew was good, but it didn't mean anything. I didn't have an attachment to it. Being diagnosed with cancer now, I am like, and it's not just cancer, it's colorectal cancer, colon cancer, right? And that's what I have. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want to see change. I don't want to see other people have to go through the same thing that I'm going through. Why I have my shirt on, get shit done, get screened, is because I want to create awareness so people are getting screened for colon cancer so they don't have to get colon cancer, which means they don't have to go through chemo. They don't have to get surgery. They don't have to get radiation, immunotherapy, whatever it is. You don't have to go through everything that I'm going through and so many other people like me are going through. But I couldn't have done that with the same intensity and the same level of impact with the people around me that are experiencing the same type of disease that I am if I didn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, right. You go from little m meaning, yeah, there's a meaning, to a capital M meaning. And now there's right. That's kind of meaning, right? So that's all about. But with that, Tim, let's let's talk about that. And we'll get to the sharing your liver part first. First of all, we're wearing blue today to support that colorectal cancer and finding a cure. Let's be clear. I changed my shirt right before I came on because it's important to me because you're important to me, and I want you to know that, Tim. That matters to me, buddy. And I took a strong arm selfie right before we got on, so I'll post that too, right? So we'll get there, man. I think that's important. So with that, right? Let's get personal. You've got cancer, buddy, and you're kicking its ass. It's not kicking your ass, but you still need a liver. So talk to me about Tim's liver and how that went for you, man. Because I know that's it makes me sad, but I'd love for you to talk about that.
Well, when I about a year ago, I became kind of given the green light to go ahead and start searching for a donor because colorectal cancer patients that have metastasis to your liver, which is what I have. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a liver transplant if you just had it in your colon still. But but since I had it in my colon or in my liver, and it was all over, I really wasn't eligible for a lot of these other treatments. So just to put the context into why I'm looking for a liver transplant, it was really the only option for me that could provide me a chance to rid my body of cancer entirely and live a longer life. That's why I pursued it. But to be a donor, to get a donor, you need to find your own living donor. And if you're not aware and you're hearing this, your liver regenerates itself in about 8 to 10 weeks. So you can donate up to 75% of your liver and it will regrow in that time frame. Most people aren't aware of that, but it's an amazing organ in your body. In addition to everything else it does, it actually will regenerate itself. So after I had my meeting and I was given the green light to search for my own donor, I put up a website because I know it's like, you can put posters up, you can share stuff on social media, people can, call the number, but really you have no way of tracking that. And so I wanted to have a way to track it at least a little bit and say, well, let me create a website so that I can track the analytics on it, see who's visiting, see who maybe clicked on certain areas, see what's working, what's not working. And so we created this timsliver.com. And it was real easy to remember because it's simple, 2 words, and short, and to the point, relevant. So I started sharing that, and I got some people calling, and I had a good flow of calls in. I would share that on social media. I have a sign on the back of my car that says that. But really, for those first 6 months, I wasn't seeing a whole lot of realistic opportunities for potential donors coming through the hospital. And it made me think, but the other thing that occurred to me during that 6 months, right, was that all these other donors that had tried to become donors for people before me that got liver transplants that had metastasized cancer, they were telling me there was 5 to 7 people that got tested and didn't qualify for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't the right blood type. Maybe it wasn't the right volume of liver, because your liver regenerates to the size that it was. So I can't take a liver from too big of a person or too short of a person, right? I need the right volume of liver. But all these different criteria. And so I started thinking, I'm like, there's 5 to 7 people that are trying to help somebody that weren't able to help somebody, but are still willing to help somebody else. What happens to those people? Where do they go? And it just dawned on me that maybe I should create a site where we could pool these potential donors together, make more people aware of the importance of becoming a living liver donor, and help the patients like me that are coming after me connect them with potential donors so they don't have to do all the work on their own. And so I created this site called Share My Liver. And that site was really not focused around me. It was just focused around anybody that had metastasized colorectal cancer that was pursuing a liver transplant, and anybody that was interested in being a donor to help any of those people. This amazing thing happened when I started doing that was I got more people sharing it, more people visiting the site, and more people calling to be my donor than when I was asking for myself. I wasn't asking at all for myself. And the funny thing about this, Phil, is my wife, some very good friends of mine, all thought I was crazy, absolutely insane that I would try and help other people before I had a donor myself. And what I just said to them was, I hear you, but I cannot tell you the feeling that I have inside when I have a potential donor come through that I can connect with a recipient. That just brings so much joy to me and brings a smile to my face. And it fuels me to keep going. That they're saying it's unhealthy for me, but they're not living in my body. I know it's healthy for me. That was healthy for me. Helping others in a similar situation to me, help connect them with potential donors. That was what I was all about. But at the same time, after they said that, I started realizing that more people were calling for me and wanting to help me. And the best part of this story is going to be when I actually get the donor, I actually get the transplant, and when I can sit here maybe a year from now and say, I helped 3 other people get living donors from this. I mean, that's my whole goal of this, is not to turn it in. I mean, my hope is that we don't have to deal with a lot of liver transplants for metastasized cancer patients, because more people will get screened and they'll prevent getting colon cancer. So we won't have to go to those treatment stages of chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, surgeries, or transplants. That's my hope. I hope that I created this and we won't need it in 5 years. The reality is we probably will. And it's probably going to become increasingly more, because it's one of these kind of experimental things in the US right now. It was piloted over in Norway, I think about 8 years ago. And so they have about 8 years history. We've been doing it here in the US for almost 5 years now. And they just did a most recent report that just came out this year that looks at our history in the US up through like the end of summer of last year. And the results are very promising. And the whole thing, and I'm very close with my surgeon who would be doing the transplant surgery. And one of the things that he's a big advocate of is that a liver transplant shouldn't be looked at as a last line of defense for a metastasized colorectal cancer patient. It should be looked at as a treatment option early on in the disease. And that's what I am looking forward to, working with him to try and make that possible. That's another reason why I want to get a liver transplant, is to be part of the research that goes into showing that this is a viable treatment option.
Awesome. Awesome. So, friends, if you're listening, right, if you want to be a living liver donor, find someone to share your liver with, you can go to sharemyliver.com and check that out, right? But as Tim said, get screened, right? Get shit done, get screened. Don't wait until this is too late for you. You can get screened now. So let's
Well, and I will just say, it's not a matter just of getting screened, but the age now, you can get screened if you're 45 or older, or if you have a family history. And if you don't know your family history, this is why it's important to ask. And I know for people who are adopted, it might get a little bit tricky into knowing that, but have those uncomfortable conversations with your family so that you can find out what your history is. Because if you have a history of colorectal cancer, you want to get screened 10 years before their diagnosis date. So if your grandfather was diagnosed with colon cancer at 45, you want to get screened at 35.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome point. That's super important. So I'm gonna repeat that, right? 10 years before diagnosis.
Yep.
10 years. Okay. So get uncomfortable, ask the uncomfortable questions, find out before it's too late, right? Like make that happen. I think that's really, really important. So Tim, have you built a big community yet around Share My Liver? How's this working, man?
It's growing. I mean, I'm doing it. Well, there's a couple things, right? Like I work full time. I go through chemo currently. My energy levels and just not what it was. One, from getting old, but two, especially from the chemo. But the reality is that I don't work on this 8 hours a day. It is something. It's a passion project of mine. And some days I work like 4 hours on it, and sometimes I don't work at all on it. And so the one thing that I would say is that I don't feel like I've grown a true community with the big C around it yet. But I think we're in the starting stages of the small C in bringing together people. Anybody that's gotten a liver transplant that's a metastasized cancer patient is all on board with what I'm doing. They think it's a wonderful idea. They help promote it. They share it. They want to tell their donors that donated to them. They want them to share their stories. So, we're starting to see people come together around that. And I'm in another group that is specific to people that have colon cancer that had it metastasized to their liver that are looking at liver transplants. And so the people in that group, whenever I see somebody post that they're having their meeting, they're having their donor meeting, I always encourage them to sign up on our site. Let's get their information. And if I have a potential donor, I'll try and have them call on their behalf. There's a lot of privacy laws, and I can't go into actually connecting the people directly together, but I can go into having that potential donor call on behalf of that person directly to the medical center that's doing the transplant.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, lots of good that you can do there, right? At sharemyliver.com. Folks can get involved, get educated. I know you've got a lot of great resources there, Tim. So with that, right, that whole transition, right, from me to we has never been more clear to me than with the transition from Tim's liver to Share My Liver.
Yes.
And I love how much joy that gives you, because I watch you light up, man. When you talk about Share My Liver, it just lights you up. And for those listening that have a family member that are thinking, well, why doesn't Tim, why doesn't my spouse, why doesn't my loved one, why don't they focus on themselves and get better? Tim is proof that moving from me to we and focusing on the big C community of helping others helps you. And I think that's so interesting. So give folks a chance to help you, right? So first, if you are suffering from metastasized colon cancer and it's moved to your liver, like go to sharemyliver.com, right? Like get involved with that and raise your hand, because people can't help you if they don't know. So that might be uncomfortable for some that are listening, right? If you're a big time introvert, you're like, I don't like to put the focus on me. I would still argue that it would help you a lot more than you realize just to get involved and to share this. What do you think, Tim?
I was going to say, if you're an introvert, if you don't like putting things out there, I actually have somebody that I've worked with who it was doing it for their partner and they didn't want it shared anywhere. And for their donor call, you're supposed to invite all your family and friends. And she was like, I can't do it because, and I told her privately, I just said, if you want, I'll show up on that call. I will become his biggest champion if he's comfortable with that. Now, he wasn't comfortable with it, so I respected his wishes and didn't do it. But what I'm saying to anybody out there is, if you just don't feel comfortable talking about yourself, sharing your story with the world, tell your story to me. I'll share it with the world. I have other people that will share it with the world. And you don't have to feel like you're doing it. And I think that's the beautiful part about this is, ultimately my goal for this would be that anybody that's looking for a liver transplant, that's a metastasized cancer patient, if you come to share my liver, the ultimate goal would be that you just put in your information. I'm not saying you don't need to do any work. You still need to do a little bit of the work, but we would have enough donors. We would have enough resources on there where you could come here and get everything you need without having to do anything else on your own. That's my goal, obviously, in the long run, because it's all
Wow.
about like finding your donor, but it's also about navigating the insurance. It's also about navigating, to be a candidate for a liver transplant. There's a lot of criteria that goes into that. It's not just as simple as you have cancer in your liver. It's the type of genetic makeup of your cancer. It's has the cancer been removed from everywhere else in your body? How have you responded to the treatment you've been getting up to this point? There's a lot of factors involved there. So, but if you qualify and you want to learn more, we want to be the resource for you. And if we don't have what you're looking for, this is how we're going to grow it, is just to get the information that you're looking for, find it, and then put it up there for others. That's how we grow the community, is by understanding that whole 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We listen to what people are asking for, and then we can tell them, because we listened, we're able to provide this.
I love that, Tim. I love that. Well, my hope today is that we've magnified this issue and helped magnify the impact of sharemyliver.com. I know there's a lot there, Tim. A lot of people can get going. I'd recommend folks get started. Just go to sharemyliver.com. Just check it out. See, maybe it impacts you. Maybe it impacts a loved one. Maybe you don't even know if it impacts someone, but take a look, give it a share. Like, just share the website out like, hey, here's something that might help somebody else. Magnify that impact. You, as a listener, as a viewer, you can help move this from me to we, and you can have a bigger impact. So, Tim McDonald, my friend, I appreciate you. I love you, and I can't wait for you to get a liver, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Phil. And I so appreciate, you wearing blue, doing the strong arm selfie. That all just helps create awareness. And obviously the main goal here is to get people screened, because early detection is a way that you treat this and cure it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So real quick here, strong arm selfie. If you use that hashtag strong arm selfie, shared on Twitter, Instagram, just take
do
a
a little,
selfie, right? Yep.
yep.
Do that. And then share the picture, and you get what, $1 to colorectal. What's the dollar for?
Fight Colorectal Cancer gets $1 donated to them. Fight Colorectal Cancer, I'm an ambassador for them. I don't get paid by them, but I'm an ambassador for them. And what they do is they provide advocacy, research funding, and education and support for patients. So that dollar goes to their efforts, and it really helps out. I mean, the Cologuard Classic is going on right now out in Tucson, Arizona. And it just amazing. This morning, I wasn't able to go because I had some stuff happening locally, advocacy work that I was doing locally. But, to see the Today Show out there with Dylan Dreyer and, all these people, Katie Couric was out there, last night at the event that they had. It's just amazing to see the support that we're starting to get on a national level to bring awareness to this, because colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of death of cancers. So it's really important that people, but it is also the only one that I think is very treatable if you catch it early enough. And if you wait for symptoms, it's probably too late.
Wow. Great stuff there, Tim. So real quick, sharemyliver.com is the website you want to go to. You want to help this, share that website. Don't forget about timsliver.com. And last but not least, you want to do an easy impact, take a strong arm selfie and share that out. Make a difference, friends. Move from me to we. Tim McDonald, it's a joy. Thanks, buddy.